Discover the miraculous path to divine connection. 3 transforming blessings for your faith journey. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, a great tumult arose within the family of Isaac. Jacob, the son of Isaac and Rebekah, found himself fleeing from the wrath of his brother Esau, whose fury blazed like the midday sun after Jacob had deceitfully claimed their father's blessing. In the wilderness of Canaan, the arid land stretched endlessly around him, the cool evening air heavy with the weight of his fear and uncertainty. As twilight descended, Jacob, weary from his flight and lost in anxious thought, sought a place of rest. He spotted a solitary stone and laid it under his head, the roughness of it a small comfort against the rigid demands of the night and the stillness. As shadows crept with the slow march of time, slumber wrapped around Jacob like a cloak. It was a deep rest, yet filled with turmoil, for his heart wrestled with the consequences of his actions, and the distance between him and home felt increasingly insurmountable. Suddenly, the veil between heaven and earth lifted, and he beheld an extraordinary vision, a grand ladder stretching from the very ground to the heavens, with angels ascending and descending, attending to the Almighty's bidding. A sense of awe enveloped him, and in the midst of this supernatural vision, a voice broke through the silence. "I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring." The power of the promise resonated deep within Jacob, balming his troubled spirit. Awakening suddenly, Jacob's heart raced as the glorious vision lingered in his mind. "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it," he gasped. With trembling hands, he realized that where he once saw desolation, God had transformed it into a sacred space, a portal to the divine, a gate of heaven itself. As the dawn broke, the horizon softened with the light of a new day. This was no ordinary place. Thus, in reverence, Jacob took the stone that served as his pillow and set it upright as a pillar, pouring oil upon it in an act of commitment. Even within this sacred act, uncertainty tugged at his heart. Would he cling to the fears birthed from his brother's fateful anger, or would he embrace the future that God had laid before him? Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. With the promise of the Lord ringing in his ears, Jacob offered a vow. "If God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God." His heart thudded with urgency, a defining moment where faith intertwined with commitment. Yet, even as resolve began to gather strength within him, a question lingered: would God truly remain faithful to his promises despite Jacob's weaknesses? In the vast wilderness, uncertainty swirled around him like the encroaching clouds, pressing him to confront the journey upon which he had embarked. Would he discover the miraculous path to divine connection, or would doubt lead him astray? The shadows lengthened as the sun cast its first light. Yet Jacob knew this was merely the beginning of a spiritual journey that would test his faith and reveal the depth of God's covenantal love. As Jacob journeyed onward, the wilderness stretched endlessly before him, a vast expanse of uncertainty and solitude. The weight of his vow hung heavily on his heart, woven together with the threads of fear and hope. Each step was marked by the echoes of doubt, yet the vision of the ladder remained imprinted upon his soul, urging him forward into the unknown. Upon reaching a town called Haran, Jacob encountered a well, surrounded by shepherds tending their sheep. As he approached, he saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, coming with her father's flock. The sight of her beauty was like a ray of sunlight breaking through the clouds of his despair. Jacob's heart quickened, for in her he glimpsed a flicker of divine providence. "My brethren, from whence are ye?" Jacob asked the shepherds, hoping to gather wisdom from their lips. "Of Haran are we," they answered, and as they spoke of their homeland, he felt the stirrings of kinship and belonging. But when Jacob laid his eyes upon Rachel, he could scarcely contain his fervor. With a strength that astonished him in that moment, he rolled the stone away from the well's mouth, an act of bravado born from love and longing. "Who is this maiden?" Jacob inquired, as Rachel approached with the flocks. The shepherds revealed her lineage, and as Jacob learned that she was indeed kin, a warmth surged through him, enveloping his troubled spirit. He felt the assurance of God how he had guided him to this place. This moment as Rachel beheld Jacob, her heart was stirred. "You are of my father's house," she exclaimed, and she ran to tell Laban of his arrival. The family reunion brought both joy and a balm to Jacob's weary soul. Laban welcomed him, and thus Jacob found solace within the shelter of kin. But as the days turned into weeks, the love Jacob bore for Rachel grew profound. He bargained with Laban for her hand, agreeing to serve 7 years. Time passed swiftly as his heart was consumed by a passion that knew no bounds. "I will go through whatever trials must come," he vowed, resolute in his commitment. Yet, Laban, crafty and shrewd, had other plans. When the time of the wedding arrived, Jacob awoke from the wedding night to find that he had been deceived. Leah, the elder sister, lay beside him, a realization that crushed his heart like fallen stone. Anguish layered itself upon him as he confronted Laban. "Why have you deceived me?" he cried, a lament that resonated with the echoes of his own past betrayal. "Such is not our custom," Laban replied, "but if you serve another 7 years, you shall have Rachel." And so it was. Jacob endured the pain of unfulfilled longing, pouring his heart into the labor of love for his rightful bride, and this cycle of heartache and perseverance. A profound lesson unfolded. For even as Jacob wrestled with the deceptions that mirrored his own, he began to understand the depths of God's mercy, a patience that reignited his spirit and placed him on a path of redemption. And as the sun set over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the land, Jacob began to fathom the purpose behind his struggles. God's hand was not withdrawn but actively shaping him, molding his heart to reflect the covenant promise he had graciously bestowed upon him. Little did he know, the time was approaching when the Lord would confront him anew, in the depths of the night. The divine plan, cloaked in mystery, was poised to unfold a revelation that would forever change Jacob's name and his destiny. Would he rise to embrace his calling, or would he falter under the weight of his past? Only the Lord knew, as the path unfolded before him. And it came to pass, after Jacob had completed the 7 years of service for Rachel, that the time of his longing had drawn nigh. His heart beat with anticipation as he made ready to take her hand in marriage. So Laban gathered all the men of the place and made a great feast, for the day of nuptials had arrived. But as night enveloped the land, Jacob, entranced by love, did not suspect the clever trickery that awaited him. Laban took Leah, his elder daughter, and brought her to Jacob, veiled and unaware. When the morning light broke upon the earth, revealing the truth, Jacob awoke in astonishment, for it was Leah that lay beside him. "What is this you have done to me?" Jacob demanded, his voice filled with anguish, for he strived for Rachel. "Did I not serve with you for Rachel? Why have you deceived me?" Laban replied, "It is not in our custom to give the younger before the firstborn. Fulfill her week, and we will give you this one also for the service which you will serve with me still another 7 years." In this profound moment of grief and revelation, Jacob felt the weight of betrayal weigh heavily upon him. His heart, once filled with hope, now wrestled with the shadows of despair. Yet, the Lord's hand was in this as well, for through Leah, Jacob would unknowingly generate a lineage that would bear witness to the unfolding of God's great promise. As Jacob took Leah to be his wife, the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, and he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Leah bore Jacob 4 sons. Reuben, for she thought that surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Then Simeon, for she said, because the Lord hath heard that I was hated, he hath therefore given me this son. And Levi, for she proclaimed, now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. And finally Judah, exclaiming, now will I praise the Lord. Thus, Leah bore witness to her longing for Jacob's love, even as Rachel's heart was consumed with envy. In her jealousy, Rachel demanded of Jacob, give me children, or else I die. Overwhelmed by this tension, Jacob replied, "Am I in God's stead, who hath withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" Rachel, in desperation, gave Jacob her handmaid Bilhah, saying, "Go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her." Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son, whom Rachel named Dan, saying, "God hath judged me, and hath also heard my voice, and hath given me a son." The conflict between Leah and Rachel intensified, as both sought the favor of Jacob and the blessings of God as promise. With each child, the struggle deepened, revealing the intricate tapestry of human emotion and divine purpose. In the midst of this familial strife, the heavens remained silent, yet the Lord was weaving his sovereign plan. For through this tumultuous journey, Jacob would not merely become a father. He would be transformed into a nation, and from his lineage, a nation would emerge blessed to be a blessing. Thus, the trials endured were but a precursor to the greater revelation that awaited him. Little did Jacob know, in time, he would wrestle not only with words but with an angel, laying claim to the very essence of his destiny. What awaited him in that divine encounter would transform not only his name, but the course of God's covenant promises for generations yet to come. The stage was set for a divine confrontation, one that would echo through time and carve out the legacy of a people chosen by God. And it came to pass that Leah, finding favor in the eyes of the Lord, continued to bear Jacob children. After Dan, Bilhah bore yet another son, whom Rachel named Naphtali, saying, "With great wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed." And Leah, seeing that she had ceased to bear, took her maid Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Zilpah bore Jacob a son, whom Leah named Gad, declaring, "A troop cometh." Then Zilpah bore a second son, whom she named Asher, saying, "I am blessed, for the daughters will call me blessed." The contention between the sisters grew, each striving for Jacob's affection, and the blessings of the Lord which seemed ever elusive to Rachel. As days turned into months, the household became a battleground of rivalry and sorrowful longing. In time, Leah bore Jacob a sixth son, and she declared, "God hath endued me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. Thus, she named him Zebulun. Then, Leah bore a daughter named Dinah. In these myriad births, though Leah began to hope for Jacob's love to follow, her heart still carried the weight of despair from being cast aside. But God had not forgotten Rachel. In her anguish, she lifted her voice to the heavens and beseeched the Lord. And God remembered Rachel. He heard her prayers and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son, and said, "God hath taken away my reproach." And she named him Joseph, declaring, "The Lord shall add to me another son." The household of Jacob swelled with children. Each name echoed the emotional trials and spiritual fervors of their mothers. The land was a witness to this unfolding drama, a tapestry woven with the threads of jealousy, hope, and divine providence. Time passed, and Jacob heard the words of Laban, "Your wages have been increased, but I shall speak with you of cattle, that which is yours." And Jacob remembered the covenant promise made to him at Bethel, urging him to return to the land of his fathers. Jacob turned to Laban saying, "I have served you these many years, and I would like to leave with my family and my own belongings." But Laban, seeing that the Lord had blessed him for Jacob's sake, sought to keep him, proclaiming, "Name your wages, and I will give it." Jacob, filled with wisdom, replied, "I will pass through all your flock today, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be my hire." Jacob, through divine revelation, would take steps that would foreshadow his future and the unfolding of a nation. He prepared branches and peeled white stripes in them, laying them before the flock in the troughs as they came to drink, that they should conceive as they looked upon the striped branches. Thus, God would prosper Jacob's flocks, and they would multiply exceedingly, representing grace and covenant favor playing out even in the struggles of family and fortune, a harbinger of greater things to come. For beyond the cattle and raw disputes of birthright, the heart of God was guiding the lineage of his chosen, weaving a heritage through trials and tribulations. Unbeknownst to Jacob, he was nearing an encounter that would redefine his purpose, one that would reveal God's sovereign plan for his descendants, a nation destined and blessed to rise from the trials of their forefather. And the glory of the Lord would shine upon Jacob, for he was not only shaping a man but establishing a legacy through which the world would witness his redemption. What revelations awaited in the shadows, veiled from human sight, were yet to unfold. And it came to pass that Jacob, having spoken to Laban, prepared his journey to depart from Haran with his wives and his children. Thus he brought forth his flocks, and all that he had acquired through the years, leaving behind the house of Laban. As he journeyed, the hand of the Lord was upon him, guiding him through the wilderness, and he was filled with thoughts of his father Isaac and the place of his inheritance. The night was dark, and the stars twinkled above him as a vast sea of light, and within Jacob's heart there stirred a great yearning for home. On the third day of his journey, Jacob looked upon his family, the 12 sons and his daughters, the fruits of both Leah and Rachel, and he prayed earnestly unto the Lord, O God of my father Abraham and Isaac, I am unworthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant. For with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I am become 2 bands. And in that moment Jacob heard a stirring in the night, a rustling of the leaves, and he turned to see a figure approaching. The presence was magnificent and filled with an aura of divinity, for it was a messenger from the Lord, sent to strengthen and impart clarity to Jacob's heart. With fervor, Jacob demanded, Tell me thy name. The figure, shrouded in divine mystery, replied, Wherefore is it that thou dost ask after my name? A realization dawned upon Jacob. He understood that this encounter would alter his very essence, and they wrestled until the break of dawn, each movement a testament to Jacob's resolve, his persistent cry for a blessing that eluded him like a shadow. For the voice within him called out, reminding him of the covenant promises and the struggles ahead. As dawn approached, the angel touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh, and he limped as a sign of divine encounter. Yet Jacob clung fiercely, declaring, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. The angel then said, Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed. And with this renaming came a new blessing, a higher purpose. For he would now lead and nurture a nation under the gracious eye of God. With trembling and awe, Jacob recognized that he had seen the face of God and yet lived. He called the name of the place Peniel, for he had wrestled with God face to face. As he arose, a dawn broke upon him, and he saw that his new path was not fraught with fear and isolation, but filled with the promise of God, a legacy unfurling in generations yet to come. And as Jacob journeyed onward, limping but strong, he awaited the full revelation of the covenant. For in the depths of his struggle and divine interaction, a profound truth remained. The Lord's purposes would not only encompass him but transcend through the generations. What awaited the people that would arise from the dust of Israel was unknown. Yet in the providential tapestry of the Almighty, the story was never just for one. It was a thread woven into the heart of many, destined to echo through time and eternity. Unbeknownst to Jacob, his walk with God had just begun, and the roar of his sovereign plan was about to resound through the ages. And Jacob lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, he saw the company of Esau approaching him with 400 men. Great fear seized Jacob, and he was greatly distressed. He divided the people that were with him and the flocks and herds and camels into 2 bands. For he said, If Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape. And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, the Lord which saidst unto me, Return unto thy country, and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee. I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies, and of all the truth, which thou hast showed unto thy servant. For with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I am become 2 bands. Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me, and the mother with the children. And thou saidst, I will surely do thee good, and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. Thus he called upon the God of his fathers in fervent prayer, seeking protection and reconciliation. Jacob took that night his gift, which he had prepared for Esau, and he sent it ahead of him in droves, leading every drove by the hand of his servants. He instructed his servants, saying, This speak ye unto Esau when ye find him. Thy servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goeth before me, and afterward I will see his face. Peradventure he will accept me. As night descended and silence fell upon the earth, Jacob rose up, and he stood by the brook Jabbok. He lingered there in quietude, reflective of the struggles and victories he had endured. It was there, now alone, a place of solitude, where the Spirit of the Lord stirred within him, instilling a peace amidst his concerns, and he wrestled again, but not with man. It was a wrestling with himself, a grappling of the spirit, self-doubt and fear against faith and assurance. As dawn approached, he felt a tremendous weight upon him as he yearned for God's affirmation in the midst of his trial. The Lord spoke to him again, saying, What is thy name? And he replied, Jacob. And the Lord said, Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed. Again he was transformed, set forth with purpose greater than his own, emerging empowered to confront his brother. And Jacob exclaimed, Tell me, I pray thee, thy name. But the Lord said, Wherefore is it that thou dost ask after my name? And he blessed Jacob there, the power of divine assurance radiating in Jacob's heart. With a new dawn breaking, Jacob crossed over the brook and went on his way. The weight of apprehension felt lighter upon his shoulders and his heart was full, for he now walked in the authority as Israel, a bearer of divine promise. And when he lifted up his eyes, behold, Esau was coming, and with him were 400 men. Jacob prepared himself for the encounter, yet within him surged a hope, for he understood the sanctity of a reconciled relationship, a testament to God's faithfulness. As Jacob approached, he bowed himself to the ground 7 times, until he came near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him, and fell on his neck, and kissed him. And they wept together, a moment of reconciliation framed by God's sovereign grace. Thus, as Jacob stood in awe of the mercy displayed, the unfolding plan of God resonated deeply within him. What he did not yet perceive was that this act of grace was but a glimpse of the greater covenant unfolding, a restoration not only of brotherhood but a prelude to the dynasties that would arise from his lineage. And in that moment, the divine thread of God's narrative continued to weave through the tapestry of history, reminding us all that even in the fiercest trials, God brings forth healing and transformation, preparing the way for generations to come. For in the heart of Israel, a nation was being birthed, destined to magnify the glory of the Almighty among all nations. And when Esau lifted up his eyes and saw the women and the children, he said, Who are those with thee? And Jacob said, The children which God hath graciously given thy servant. Then the maidens approached with their children, and Esau embraced them, his heart melting with compassion. He beheld the tenderness with which his brother had nurtured Jacob's household, and a sense of unity began to bloom where once there had only been anger. Esau then said, What meanest thou by all this drove which I met? And Jacob replied, These are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. And Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep that thou hast unto thyself. But Jacob implored him, saying, Nay, I pray thee, if I have found grace in thy sight, receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. The words of Jacob were fortified by his newfound identity, his heart enveloped in humility and gratitude. Thus, Esau accepted the gifts with joy, and the brothers began to converse, recounting the years apart, not as adversaries, but as men of the covenant. And Jacob said, Let us travel together, and I will lead the way. But Esau replied, Let my Lord go on before his servant, and I will lead on softly, according as the cattle that goeth before me and the children be able to endure. Jacob, in his wisdom, obliged and agreed, trusting in the gentle journey they now embarked upon together. So they journeyed, united in spirit, a new legacy beginning under the watchful care of the Almighty. As they reached Succos, Jacob built a booth for his cattle and made tents for his family, calling the place Succos, which means booths. In these moments of settlement, when his heart quieted with joy and relief, God spoke again to Jacob, despite his trials, reaffirming the steadfastness of his promises, and God said, I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointed the pillar, and where thou vowed a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out from this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. Jacob arose early in the morning, taking the stones which he had put for his pillow, and set them up for a pillar. He poured oil upon the top of it, dedicating the place anew in worship. As he gazed upon the horizon, he saw not just the land of his fathers but the unfolding of God's prophetic promise. He was reminded that though the journey had been fraught with fear and wrestling, the path led him to divine encounters that shaped his destiny. In these sacred moments, Jacob's heart swelled with the understanding of God's grace, a grace that not only restored relationships but also conjured a legacy of faith that would endure. Yet still, God's sovereign plan had more in store for Jacob. For unbeknownst to him, the seed of his trials bore fruit in the hearts of those who would come after him, weaving their own stories into the tapestry of redemption, as a multitude that would one day encompass nations. As Jacob walked forward, each step resonated with purpose, a reflection of the covenant promise that was alive within him. He felt the divine current of God's prophecy intertwining with the lives of his descendants, instilling hope and anticipation for what was to come. Indeed, even as the sun rose high and cast its golden rays upon the land, Jacob sensed the winds of change stirring, propelling him along a path marked out by the hand of God, each revelation indicative of a promise that would reach far beyond his present reality. And as Jacob moved onward, he carried with him a profound truth, that in every season of struggle, God awaits to reveal his plans that echo with the promise of restoration, guiding his people into greater depths of his unfathomable love. For it was in the heart of Israel that the world would one day behold the fullness of God's redemption. And Jacob journeyed onward, his heart filled with awe as he considered the wonders of God's love. He gathered his family and spoke to them, saying, Fear not, for we bear witness to the faithfulness of the Lord. He hath brought us this far, and he shall provide for our future. His words echoed with the strength of a father entwined in covenant promise. As he traveled toward the land of his fathers, the path began to rise toward the hill country. There, encamped beside the river Jabbok, Jacob felt a great stirring within him. In the quiet of the night, he prepared his heart for prayer, seeking communion with the Almighty who had guided him through every trial. But on that very night, as he stood alone by the riverbank, a shadow loomed, and a mysterious figure appeared. The figure approached and wrestled with Jacob until the breaking of dawn. Each grasp held the essence of contest and resolve, as Jacob grappled not just with the man but with the weights of his very soul. In the struggle, exhaustion beckoned. Yet Jacob clung ever tighter, saying, I will not let thee go except thou bless me. The plea surged from his heart, a declaration of desperation and faith intertwined. The figure responded, What is thy name? To which Jacob replied, Jacob. And the figure said, Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed. In that renaming, Jacob understood that he had faced the divine and emerged transformed, with the first light of dawn. The figure touched Jacob's hip, causing it to shrink, and thus Jacob limped, marked by the encounter. He named the place Peniel, saying, I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. The weight of this experience thrilled within him, signifying both a change in fortune and a deeper revelation of God's purpose. And as he crossed the river, the encounter weighed heavy on his heart, driving him to reflect upon the significance of the blessing and the name by which he was now called. Israel, a name laden with the promise that he would be a father to nations, a lineage destined to carry forth the legacy of faith in due time. He approached the city of Shechem, where he set up an altar and named it Elilohizrael, proclaiming, Here I shall offer unto the Lord, for it is he who has brought me through my trials and gifted me with a new identity. As he communed with God, dreams of the future flooded his mind. The promise echoed again, that he would be made a great nation, and kings would come forth from his loins. Each family member felt the mending of spirits as they witnessed him restored, a man who grasped the essence of divine blessing. But unknown to Jacob, the winds of fate held deeper truths. For even as God poured out his favor upon him, a stillness enveloped the land, and through the generations that would follow, A great trial awaited, a need for deliverance that would shape not just his lineage, but all families of the earth. Thus, Jacob journeyed onward, burdened yet emboldened, aware that in the tapestry of divine orchestration, the darker threads often contributed to the brilliant design. The Lord's sovereign hand guided him, whispering promises of restoration, not only for himself but for that which was yet to come. And so it was, as Jacob walked back towards his kin, that he puzzled over the true depth of the covenant, the unfolding of a narrative far beyond his own, whereby his legacy would weave into the very fabric of salvation history each step, a heartbeat in the forthcoming plan that would reveal the redemption of many. And it came to pass that Jacob lifted his eyes toward the horizon, and he beheld the tents of his brother Esau from afar. Fear gripped his heart, for he knew the past lay heavy between them, a wound from which neither had truly healed. So he divided his household into two bands, saying, "If Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape." He called upon the name of the Lord in his distress, praying, "O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, the Lord which saidst unto me, Return unto thy country and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee. I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies, and of all the truth, which thou hast shewed unto thy servant." Night shrouded the land as Jacob wrestled with his thoughts, recalling the promise of the Almighty, trusting in the character of God who had brought him thus far. He laid down his fears before the Lord, reminding himself of his lasting faithfulness. And in that darkness he gained strength, knowing that he was not alone as day broke. Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau, to find favor in his sight. The messengers returned with the tidings that Esau was coming to meet him, and with him 400 men. Jacob's heart trembled anew. His prayer turned from despair to a plea for mercy, as he did not know what would come from the unresolved conflict with his brother in sincerity. He prepared gifts for Esau, sending ahead of him droves of cattle and sheep, to appease his anger and seek reconciliation. As the herds passed before him, Jacob felt the weight of both hope and dread. Would Esau's heart soften, or would the heart that had once cried, "I am faint, I am faint," return to bitterness? As Jacob approached the meeting place, he placed his children in the care of his maidservants and Leah, while Rachel remained close by. And he himself went on before them, bowing down to the ground 7 times as he drew near to his brother. But behold, when Esau saw him, he ran to meet him, embraced him, and fell on his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. In that moment, the burdens of years fell away as Jacob found solace in the arms of his brother. He said, "Truly to see thy face is as seeing the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me." And Esau replied, "What meanest thou by all this drove which I met?" Jacob answered, "These are to find grace in the sight of my Lord." Esau, with a heart transformed by grace, said, "I have enough, my brother. Keep that thou hast unto thyself." But Jacob insisted that he accept the gift, for he felt honored in his brother's kindness, and thus they reconciled, bringing an end to the strife of their past. Then Jacob journeyed to Succoth and built him a house there, for he now had a vision that reached beyond his own legacy, even unto the generations to follow. Each step retraced the history of promise as he settled near Shechem, knowing that the Lord was with him still, continuing to guide every footfall in the unfolding of divine purpose. Yet, in the stillness, Jacob felt the weight of the future heavily upon him, for deep within he sensed a shadow loomed. As he pondered the covenant God had made with him, he understood there were greater trials to come, destined to refine his lineage and reveal the heart of redemption. What Jacob had not yet fathomed was that the unfolding of history rested upon his shoulders, a tapestry being woven that would echo through generations, promises unfulfilled, a nation yet to be formed, and a journey through adversity paving the way for a deliverer yet unseen. In the days that followed, Jacob established his residency in the land of Canaan, rooted beside the city of Shechem, the place where God's covenant reigned amidst his family. And there, he built an altar to the Lord, the first of many acts of devotion, calling it El-Elohe-Israel, declaring, "This is the God of Israel." The echoes of praise rose from his heart as a sweet incense, for he understood the rich tapestry of grace that surrounded him. As the seasons changed, so too did the hearts of those around him. The trials Jacob endured had forged a resilient spirit, tempered in the fires of struggle and reconciliation. His sons grew into a company of strong men, each reflecting the legacy of the promise that God had bestowed upon their father. Life flourished around Jacob as the household expanded, with each child a testament to the faithfulness of the Lord, who had turned his fears into faith. Yet as the family prospered, a darkness lurked. The actions of those now encamped near them stirred the heart of Jacob. The land was marred by strife. He summoned his sons, imparting a lesson rooted in the wisdom of God. Let us walk in righteousness and guard the covenant that our father Abraham upheld. The Lord our God is a jealous God, and we are called to remain steadfast in our devotion. His words stirred a sacred honor among his children, urging them to remember the covenant blessings that had shaped their history. But within the hearts of some, the call to vengeance whispered seductively. It began with the son of Leah, Simeon, and Levi, who in their fury avenged the dishonor wrought upon their sister Dinah. In their rage, they attacked the city of Shechem, devastating its inhabitants and plundering its treasures. Yet, even in this act, Jacob's heart ached. "What have ye done?" he lamented, filled with dread at the news. "We have made me to stink among the inhabitants of the land. The Canaanites will gather against us." In this tumult, Jacob turned once more to the Lord, the God of covenant, lifting his voice in supplication. "O Lord God of my fathers, help us. Redeem this house from the strife that threatens to consume us." And the Lord spoke, guiding Jacob once more, "Arise, go up to Bethel and dwell there, and make there an altar unto God, who appeared unto thee in the day of thy flight from Esau thy brother." Heeding the Lord's command, Jacob gathered his family, urging them to put away the foreign gods, the idols they had picked up in their earlier travels, and to purify themselves, for they were a holy people called out for God's purpose. Together, they journeyed toward Bethel, leaving behind the strife of Shechem. And in this pilgrimage, Jacob's heart soared with anticipation. Here lay a chance for renewal, a return to the sacred promise. Upon their arrival, Jacob built an altar at Bethel, much as he had long ago, proclaiming the faithfulness of God who had brought him back to this sacred site. As the sun set behind the hills, a palpable peace settled over the camp, and in a dream that night, God spoke to him again, reaffirming the covenant promises, the fullness of which would bless the nations through him. In that moment of divine communion, Jacob grasped the breadth of the covenant and its implications for his sons. He saw clearly now that the struggles he had endured were not just for himself. They were part of a greater narrative, one that would lead not only to his lineage but to a nation that would cry out for deliverance. And Jacob said to his sons, "Gather round, for our purpose lies in the hands of the Almighty." He then pronounced a blessing over each of them, declaring their destinies, unveiling the divine plan that would unfold through their generations. "For from me shall come 12 tribes, and from these 12 shall arise kings and prophets, destined to reveal the glory of the Most High." Thus Jacob forged a new chapter, grounded in his renewed identity as Israel, and he sought to lead his family into a promise that would outlast them all. In reverent faith, they took the names of their lineage: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin, qualities infused with divinity, each a thread joining them to the unfolding story of salvation. Yet the road would not be without its trials. Deeper shadows awaited as famine approached the land. A time of reckoning and deliverance was set in motion. But through it all, Jacob's unwavering belief in God's covenant love would guide them. For God had whispered of a deliverer. One day, from the depths of Israel, a Redeemer would rise, shining brightly through the darkness. And so, Jacob lived to embrace each moment, casting his eyes upon the stars with deep gratitude, knowing his life had become part of something far greater than himself, a divine orchestration through which the nations would be blessed and receive eternal hope. This is the legacy of Jacob, a story woven into the very fabric of history, a testament to faith, to struggle, and to the unwavering promise of God's faithfulness. Everyone reading this tale is invited to partake in the divine network of grace that still flows from the covenant of old, to embrace the call to live in the light of Christ's love. Now, if you want to continue exploring these transformative narratives that reveal God's promises, you need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word. This is the moment to help spread biblical truth. Leave a like now to assist in amplifying his message through the algorithm. We encourage you to comment with your spiritual reflections and share how this biblical story has impacted your faith journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. Let us ignite the hearts of many, unveiling the life-changing love of our Savior.